Community Heart Media. Your voice, your heart, your opportunity. Welcome to tonight's show.
Oh, here we are on Community Heart Radio. It's 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night, and we love 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night because we can come here and we can catch up with Julio. He's up the beach where he normally is. We've got Kelly here. Great to see you too tonight. Julio, how are you tonight, mate?
I'm very good, Mark, and hello to all the viewers as well. I'm having a great time with this nice cold weather that we've accomplished this today. So, yes.
It's fantastic. And Kelly, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm still losing my voice a little bit, so if I sound husky, there you go. But it's a good Wednesday, and I'm very pleased to have Brendan on the show tonight.
Brendan, it's great to have you here, mate, and it's a topic that everyone wants to talk about, especially given rising interest rates, petrol prices, all the stuff's going on around the world, and now they're going to attack our superannuation. So I don't know, mate. It's what, do you think people are going to start putting more money under the bed or what?
There's a very good chance of that. Either under the mattress or in the bank account.
Mate, well, why don't you introduce yourself, Brendan? Tell us a bit about yourself tonight.
Well, my name's Brendan. Look, I've had a bit of a varied experience when it comes to money and finance. When I was fresh out of high school, I took on a bookkeeping course. Back in those days, it was actually by correspondence with pen and paper. From there, it's just kind of gone into the office business admin field, studied financial services, business admin, gone on to have a bit of a break from that kind of office finance field and did mostly cleaning and manual labor jobs. It wasn't until I moved to Melbourne where I kind of picked up with finance again. I got involved with a local group in a church that did financial counselling. And so I did a few more studies and things there and helped out with the financial team a little bit there. Apart from that, just running my own business, helping people start their own business. Recently, I guess I've studied a lot in the tax area. And just in general, like helping people with their financial issues.
Yeah, well, look, it's just great having you here, Brendan. You might notice that Julio might drop off to sleep because he's got plenty. He doesn't need to talk about what he's doing with his money. So he's not that interested tonight, to be honest. I didn't want to tell you that alive, but, he might pick up something, but he's got no need. Where Kelly and I, we're your everyday Joes. We worry about how much the petrol price is, all that. Julio's got his own tank, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But tonight's going to be for our listeners. We want to listen to our listeners tonight because I'm sure you're going to have questions. You've used that 3-letter word, tax. That's interesting. I don't even think Julio pays any tax. But anyway,
hang on a second there, Mark. Brendan might go into this a bit later, but is he actually paying more tax? So there you go.
Well,
we don't know.
That's true. He's a big consumer, the Julio is. He buys all these big toys, but boats, cars, caravans, houses, he buys it all.
That's true.
Julio, we've got Augustine said hello.
We do, and that's my good friend from New Zealand. Thank you, Augustine, for watching us tonight. We're streaming, live across the world.
We're streaming all around the world tonight because everyone around the world is worried about money, apart from Julio. So, so tonight's going to be really interesting. We want people to ask questions. I've got a few things to ask. I'm sure Kelly has. We've got a few examples. It's going to be a really interactive night because this is a subject that affects all of us, money. You'd say that, wouldn't you, Kel?
Definitely. And here in Melbourne, like I have said to, all three of you and and Augustine included, I feel as though, for me personally, and I'm not sure about you, Brendan, I'm keen to hear your thoughts. Melbourne, we're hitting the living costs now of where we were in Auckland, New Zealand, 5 years ago. I'm saying, this is feeling awfully familiar. counting the cost of petrol, looking at the cost of groceries, thinking, should I be getting that coffee? Should I not? Wages and salaries staying the same. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
So, Brendan, we're hoping you're going to be a man of the people today. And, let's just, we want to hear from people, though. We want to hear some questions. Why don't you just give us a little bit of an overview of what you think are the main issues facing people that you're talking to around this whole financial stuff at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's a few issues. Obviously, inflation, the cost of living is probably the main one. Everyone's kind of concerned where their wages are somewhat either going up a little bit or not really going up at all in comparison with the cost of living. I think the second one is probably in the debt space. You know, obviously there's good and bad debt. For I guess a lot of people, debt is a bad thing that we're all trying to reduce in some capacity. And there's been a lot of talk about home loans and fixed rates and variable rates and kind of what should I do here? Is now a good time to even buy a home? Yeah, so there's lots of interesting.
Can we just clarify with Julio something? Because Julio, what sort of debt have you got? You got the good type or the bad type?
I'm running on both debts at the moment.
What would be? Give us an example of your bad debt and your good debt.
So the bad debt is that I can't recover very easily due to construction or unfeasible job requirements that I can't meet due to lack of international stock coming into the country. So it's a lot harder to manage that one. The good debt that I find is still probably property and some financial assets that I put aside just to hold on for a long period of time. But that's still a debt that I've got because I'm paying it off as I go along.
Okay, well, it's clear to see that you're operating a different planet to most of us, because I would have thought bad debt is my credit card going out of control, and good debt might be my home loan. What do you think about that, Brendan?
Yeah, it's pretty much the case. I mean, all bad debt, credit cards. I would say even payday loans and things like that, short-term loans with ridiculous interest that unfortunately some people fall into that trap where they need the extra funds, but they're paying ridiculous amounts of interest just to kind of survive and make it to the next paycheck. So that's something that's pretty bad. Yeah.
Now, going on to the credit card, Brendan, have you experienced that today's society people have used like the ability of the credit card like extra money more than there used to be, or do you think it's always been there?
I think it's kind of varied a bit, to be honest. Yeah, a lot of people do view it as extra money, but they don't really think about the interest and stuff if they don't pay things off on time, or it just kind of accrues into this giant debt snowball, and fall into a bit of a trap there. But I think also alongside of credit cards, we have this kind of trap now with buy now, pay later schemes, which can be equally devastating on a low income.
Yeah.
100%.
Just gives an example of those, mate. That is that when Kelly goes shopping, buys all her fancy clothes, she puts it on the sort of the, what is it? Afterpay, is it?
Yeah. Well, there's all kinds these days. Afterpay, pay. There's all kinds of different ones that are easily accessible. Unfortunately, I think all that does is create less income in the future, and so it bites into next week's paycheck, and then the bills come in, and then people are short and can't afford what they normally would.
Brendan, talk to us a bit about, you said one of the first problems is inflation. So for a numbers novice like myself, talk to us about what that actually means.
Well, inflation is basically something that's been around for a long time, and so it's going to continue.
Why is it suddenly increasing so much so quickly, though? Is it because of post-COVID, perhaps, where they've got to play catch up over the past 2 years?
Yeah. Basically, the economy was going along too well, too quick for too long, and as a result of that, the cost of things, supply and demand, and of course, COVID with lockdowns, there's a huge effect there where people had all this built up cash that just sat in the bank. A lot of spending increased during COVID. Obviously, sitting around at home
So,
online.
Brendan, what you're telling me is that Julio's the problem. He's got all this cash. He's been spending up. He's been lifting up inflation.
Well, Marcus.
And now Kelly and I have to pay for it. Is that what we're talking about?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought he was part of the problem. Couldn't define what it was though. Now you've given me some good insights into what's going on out there.
So does it mean and how do we know when it's going to stop increasing? If that makes sense, when it's going up and up and up and up and up, and what do we do? Why is that?
Well, I think one of the things that we'll eventually start to see as the cost of living has increased along with the interest rates. So the interest rates have increased in order to, I guess, try and slow down the economy, stop people spending so much, try and build up more of a cash reserve. So I guess one of the signs, I think, as inflation gets more under control, is eventually the interest rates will stop rising. They'll sort of flatten out. They'll eventually come down over time. I think we'll see supply and demand bit of a switch there in some sectors. We'll see a slowdown in spending. Those are kind of the main ones, like retail.
So is it the fact where, you're just about to say retail. I was going to say, I was listening to another radio show as I was driving home this evening, and it was saying a major shareholder like Woolworths was announcing that it's making so much profit now, but people's spending has changed a lot, whereas people aren't purchasing. They were saying something about people aren't purchasing red meat anymore because it's too expensive. So their purchasing's changed. So what do we do? How long does that go on for?
It'll go on for a little while, I would imagine. It's just a matter of keeping an eye on the interest rates, the sort of what happens in the spending space. There's a whole range of statistics that we kind of look out for in terms of spending. And eventually, like I said, those interest rates will flatten out, they'll drop. I think it'll probably take a good year or so, to be honest, for us to get.
I mean, some people this relates to, but I mean, I was over to Julio's place on Saturday night. I tell you what, you couldn't believe how big that steak was. It was unbelievable. So, obviously, Julio, it's affecting some people and not others, mate.
That's true. I do have a little bit of a larger question for you, looking at crystal ball, is basically, do you know how we talk about now that things have sort of changed around? We're dealing with a lot of situations internationally that can affect Australia.
Yes.
With basically the Europeans losing nearly their 60% of their agricultural ability due to the Ukraine war, do you see that impact coming on us because our food has to be exported? They get more money to export than they get to keep it in Australia. So do you see these inflations coming ahead as well with all what's going on with the food costs?
Yeah, I mean, food, fuel, those are probably the two biggest ones that we'll see that will affect us in terms of inflation and costs of living. They're definitely two of the biggest ones, the biggest drivers where oil prices are concerned. Obviously, the whole war, what's going on with Russia at the moment. I'm just
And Augustine, we're keen to hear from you over in New Zealand how much you're paying for petrol at the moment, because I know I saw a sign over there recently where it's getting close to $3 per litre. $3.
Oh, we're keen to hear from anyone tonight. They must have some financial questions out there. I can't be the only one struggling with Kelly about how to manage my budget. But so I think we might start off with. I think you got some examples, Brendan. But before you get on to your example, I just want to give you a little scenario. I'm paying my rent. I'm getting a fixed salary, and all the prices are going up. I'm starting to struggle paying my rent. How do I manage my money coming in? Because I spend too much. I spend more than I'm getting in, I think. I wouldn't know because I'm all over the place with my finances. What's your advice for people like me that got to sort of straighten up our finances? What would you do? Let's just go step by step, right? I get paid today. What would I do with that money? And how would I sort of plan my life out so I can meet my bills? I can go out with Kelly to the movies. I can pay my rent and do it all. Maybe I can't do it all. How do I know?
I think one of the first things, even before we get paid, that we kind of got to do is do a budget. And it always starts with a budget, I think. Looking at what comes in, what goes out. There's kind of it's probably the one thing that we kind of all struggle with. Maybe we're a bit scared to create.
Well, can you help us
budget.
to know how to do a budget? Because I obviously don't know I'm going to go out to the movies with Kelly. I don't know how much I'm going to eat next week because I haven't eaten it yet. So how do I work on a budget when I'm not sure exactly what the expenses are going to be?
Yeah, I think for the most part, we need to prioritize our expenses, our essential expenses, and understand what they are. And once our income covers those expenses, then there's those kind of other expenses. It might be going out for a cup of coffee. It might be going to see a movie or something. Whatever it is, it's keeping an eye on those expenses that we can potentially cut out in order to save money and meet the future essential costs.
Okay,
would you
now I'm
say
getting it.
when we put it into categories, would you say then we sort of, when we're saying and make a budget, e.g. rent will be this much, petrol estimate to be this much. Is that what you mean? So that would be the first step?
Yeah, I think definitely your essentials, your petrol, your rent, your food. It might be power, gas, water. Kind of go down the list of essentials that we need, and then work out if there's any room for expenditure cuts. But
are you a big believer? Because some people say what they should do is get that money you have to do, like your rent and your bills, put that in a separate account, and then you've got your variable money left in your account that you can have some decision making over. But are you a fan of having multiple accounts like that, Brendan?
In some ways, yes, I find it very good. I tend to separate certain expenses that are like annual expenses, like my rego, all the big ticket items. I tend to save for those in a separate account. So when that time of year comes around, that's bill is covered. I do also find that, especially these days with so much internet banking and things, it can be very easy to go over budget on the food side. So what I tend to do is encourage people to work out what their kind of amount that is available for food, and then take that amount out in cash as opposed to leave it in the bank.
Oh, wow.
And that way, then you've only spending what you've actually got. You know exactly what you've got, and it's a lot easier to keep a track of.
Interesting. So you're saying big ticket items like registration. What other items you would say put in a separate account and then cash out for food?
anything, insurance, registration, anything that might kind of be a bill in 6 months to 12 months' time, put a little bit of money towards those each payday. That way, then when the time comes, it's not a huge amount that we're looking for.
And what about for those things that you can't predict? So say there might be flights, medical expenses. Is that kind of thing that we should be putting away for as well?
Absolutely. So we should have I always encourage people to try and have an emergency fund, just a bank account with money in it. Things pop up all the time,
Mm.
medical emergencies, or all kinds of things. You just don't know. You could lose your job and find yourself in need of money.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, that's one of my
Now, Julio,
pick.
can you relate to any of this, mate? Do you do any of this yourself, mate, or like how do you manage your money?
Uh, Pretty much, yes. I've learned to do a couple of things of this myself. I also have been a couple of finance programs, which probably you run, Brendan, yourself, for people to go into and actually learn how to manage your funds. On that, Brendan, I've also been told that you should keep a percentage of your income for that sort of stuff. So you should nominate 8%, so like 10%, 15% aside for those, like a rainy day account. Do you subscribe to that point of view, or do you prefer like more of a checking your balance out?
In a lot of ways, like people are very, very different. Um, for those that find it hard to budget, it might be easier for them to stick to a percentage-based rule where they go, okay, I'm going to put 5% of my income away. That's going to be it for my emergency savings. Other people are going to go, well, I'm not sure, like if I can stick to that percentage rate over time. And so they allow a bit of flexibility in their budget and go, okay, I'm going to put maybe a minimum of $20, $30 away each
Mm.
week towards my emergency fund, but not stress so much that if I don't put that $20 away, it's not the end of the world kind of deal. Like there's flexibility in the budget for that, as opposed to a percentage that you're definitely putting away each week.
Mm.
Okay,
Brendan,
so
how many
like,
accounts do you think we should have? So like when Julio's saying about that, like the other percentage, or you're saying the $20 or $30 per week, should we be having like an account for that, an account for that's coming in, an account that for food? Like how many accounts would you recommend to have?
I wouldn't recommend to have too many accounts, and of
Mm.
course, it's going to depend too on your bank, who you bank with. Like some banks charge a monthly fee for having an account, so obviously you're not really going to want to have an account with them if you're trying to put away money for a rainy day.
Mm.
I generally tend to have an everyday account where all my, you know, everyday expenses, fuel, food, power, water, gas, whatever it is, most of it will come out of that. Um, with terms of food, like I said, I take that out in cash. I find sometimes what the bank statement says in available cash and what's actually in there can be quite a gap.
Mm.
So we can get tricked into a false sense of security in a sense that the available cash isn't actually what's available. So yeah, in
So,
general,
Kelly, how many accounts have you got? What's your little secrets that you do with your money? How do you manage it?
I have
Kelly, after Kelly.
yeah.
Oh, well, mine may or maybe not be different, and keen to hear from any of our listeners and viewers out there. Because I'm not an Australian permanent resident, I have to have bank accounts open over in New Zealand. So I have ANZ, Australia, New Zealand, and I have what's called the Kiwi Saver open over there, which I have to have open until I'm 67, and had to have another account open there, just open. So whether it has $1 or $2 in it, so that's over there. Here I have my superannuation, and then I have two accounts: one my everyday account and one my savers account.
How does that sound, Brendan? Does that sound
That's
so?
all right.
Kelly, you don't put anything away for your rent or your big bills or that rainy day account. You don't have, that's the savings account, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right.
How would you assess how Kelly's doing it and how Julio's doing it, mate? Who would you give the chocolates to, Julio or Kelly?
I think Kelly.
Kelly.
There you go.
That's
Pretty much, yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, it's good to hear people that what happens, isn't it, Julio? Like out there, and we haven't had any comments from our guests, but I suppose they're all struggling with this. I know that we all deal with money, and we want to know how to make the most of it. Paying off loans, paying off credit cards, paying expenses, meeting our bills, all this stuff. It's something that we all can relate to. So, Brendan, in your job, do people come up to you and say, look, I've got all these issues. Can you solve them? Is that what your job is, or is that what happens?
I can't speak too much in terms of what I'm doing work-wise, just because of social media policy, etc. What I can say is that it tends to be general advice, helping people with their budgets, seeing if there's some ways in which they can increase their income in particular. Sometimes it's something that people struggle with. They think that there's not so many options available to them, especially if they're a low income earner and they only have, say, $20, $30 a week left over. Well, what do I do with that? In some cases, it's a matter of trying to figure out if there's a room for savings there somewhere, something that they can cut out, maybe a better interest rate on their credit card or something, maybe a better way to save, kind of see where they're at. But generally speaking, it tends to be more budget focused, I think, and general business advice. A lot of people have tried to supplement their income with either a second job or a new business, a kind of side hustle, if you will.
Would you recommend that, Brendan? Many people now can do Uber, for example, and let's say they drive on a Friday or Saturday night and they earn a lot, or they have the potential to. From a tax purpose point of view as well, what's your thoughts on that?
It's a bit of an interesting one. It's going to be different for every person. There is a huge demand for labor type jobs, especially I would say cleaning at the moment. You'll have noticed a lot of companies are looking for cleaners. Super huge demand. Even mowing lawns and things like that, there's still a really big demand for. And I think that's only going to increase over the next few months and until more laborers come in. But there's definitely opportunities in that kind of field that's low cost to enter as well.
Great. Well, Eric's come in and he's got a question here about the superannuation. Any thoughts on the proposed superannuation changes to define super as being for retirement and restrict early access? What's your thoughts on that?
Good question.
Well, it's a very interesting one. Super as a whole, I mean, the whole purpose of super is obviously for our retirement. I think there's provisions now for access to super under hardship and under certain other circumstances at the moment. I don't know too much on the super space, to be honest. That's not my area of expertise, but I would definitely a space to keep an eye on and kind of see what rule changes they're proposing and what kind of comes in. I would think that you'd be far more beneficial in not changing too much as it is.
But it is, Brendan, it's tax effective to put stuff in your super, though, isn't it? Obviously, you want to maximise that and put as much in there. Well, if you can, put a bit more in there because you get taxed at a lower rate there, don't you?
Yes, that's correct. I think it depends on your age and when you're actually planning to retire as well. Obviously, a younger person, you want to put more money in there, build it up over time. Whereas if you're closer to retirement, you might be more inclined to, I might put a little less in there than I was previously. You might want to take that. There's a whole bunch of schemes with super. The first home saver scheme. You might want to invest in a little bit extra towards your home. That's just something to consider. Yeah.
Oh, we'll keep the questions going. Brendan's really happy to answer, and obviously we've got other learned friends like Julio and Kelly here that can also give their 5 cents worth as well. It's really good to hear from Eric. You'll probably give 7
now,
cents.
I've got another scenario question for you, and I know this can relate to many of our listeners and viewers out there. So please comment or feel free to add any chats or comments as well. So, like we're saying, everything's going up. Petrol, food, living costs, and everything, but wages and salary are staying the same. Companies can't afford to increase, or people are on in a permanent role or a long-term fixed-term contract. What about those areas where people do need extra income? And they're really, where their jobs are really important. They might be working in the education sector, for example. I've got friends who are teachers or teacher aides, and they're highly, highly valued, or friends working in the healthcare sector as GPs and nurses, but it's a slow salary growth, but they're highly needed jobs. What would you advise to people like that, so that then they're not living paycheck to paycheck, or they can actually feel like they're moving forward a little bit?
In terms of income, I think there are some opportunities out there to increase income, especially more so investing. I think
Okay.
there's definitely some platforms out there that do deal with, you might call, micro investing, and over time that can certainly build up to create wealth for yourself in the future. Um, there are some that I do recommend for some people to have a look at.
So this is
Yeah,
micro investing, is that right?
yeah, micro investing. It's investing. You might be buying fractional shares or something. Investing. There's certain accounts out there now where you can invest on a very small scale, even as low as $1. And you buy a percentage of a share, and you can earn some passive income that way. I think, probably one of the more low to medium risk ones, that I quite often recommend is having a look into Latrobe Financial and looking into their pooled fund, where you can enter their 12-month one. I think earning 5.65% interest at the moment. That's variable, but the
Talk to
entry
us
rate is
about
only
that. I can hear Julio going, yep. Talk to us
That's
about
where
that.
Julio's got all his money at Latrobe. I think you've
Well,
stolen Julio's idea.
no, the thing I find fascinating is that people are so scared about this second passive income investing compared to a super fund, which is a long-term project, compared to something that give you quite easy funds moving forward quite quickly. So it'd be nice for you to talk about that, Brendan.
Keen to find out more about that.
Yeah, I know. I've investigated a few over the years, especially when I had time during lockdown. Um, Platforms like Raise, for example, some people have used, where a portion of their spending goes towards their saving. They link it up with their account, and a percentage that they spend actually goes to an investment account. Um, I know of Raise. Yes, Spaceship is another one that some people have used in the past.
What
Um,
about Brendan? Julio offered me a couple of coins the other day to invest in.
Yeah. Well, even platforms like Sharesies is quite good. Is fractional investing again in the share market, and again it's extremely low entry.
So
As
Sheezy's
little
is
as
an app, is that correct, Brendan?
sorry, what was that?
So Sheezy's is an app, is that correct? And we might put in, let's say, $20 into that. Is that right? And we see it slowly increase.
Yeah, absolutely. You can invest. It's just like investing in the share market. You can pick anything from ETFs. The thing that I like about Sharesies is it's not just investing in the Australian Stock Exchange. It's also the New Zealand Stock Exchange. It's the US Stock Exchange. There's 3 different exchanges that they kind of deal with that you can invest in a very low cost way.
So let's say someone puts in money into that, right? So they jump in the app, they put in money onto that, and that increases. Then does that mean they can take out that money and that's the extra money that they've earned? Is that how it works?
Yeah, you can. It works very much like a lot of share things. You can definitely put it in. You put it into basically a wallet, your money,
Okay.
and then you can pick what to invest in. You can sell it, and then you can have the money in and out between your account and their account within 2 days. So it's
Wow.
quite quick turnaround. A lot of like there's some ways that you can get your money into the wallet straight away. There's a small fee attached to that.
Mm.
Obviously, it's cheaper to just transfer the money from your bank account. But with Osco, like I've used Osco payments into there, and they've turned up like two 2 hours, less than 2 hours later, into the wallet.
Can I get Kelly to manage mine? Because Kelly manages a lot of things for me. She's the
Yeah.
doer of the group. So if I just give her $100 and I get Julio to give her $100 and she puts $100 in, can we just put $300 on this
Yeah.
little platform you're talking
Mm.
about? And we could watch it grow on the show, Kelly. We could. What do you
That's a
reckon?
good
Can we
idea.
do that, Brendan? Can we all put $100 in and then we can report back to our listeners how our $300 has gone over the year?
Yeah, of course you could. Yeah, I mean,
I
with
might
the
have to
way
borrow $100 off
the
Julio
moment
to
it's
do it,
going
but you know.
I was going to say,
Well,
yeah.
that's not new, so it's okay.
But yeah, I mean, any investment has a risk, as we know. Um, Probably, I would tend to keep a smaller amount invested in the share market at the moment, just because in general terms, as the interest rates rise, share prices fall. So
Mm.
you know, this might be where you put $1 or $2 in towards an ETF or something. That's
What's an ETF again, mate, for us plebs?
So an ETF is basically a collection of companies that have been put together into one umbrella, if you like. So if I buy a share in an ETF, it might have 50 companies in it, and we purchase a share, a percentage of each company within that ETF umbrella. I think might be the
That
easiest
sounds
way.
good. Well, I think we've got Bree. We might better get $100 off Bree as well to join our little fund. Anyone else out there wants to add to our fund, you can. But Bree likes micro investing. Sounds great. So that just cost you $100, Bree. Anyone else want to donate $100 to our cause? Because we're up to $400. We'd be good if we got to $500 or $600. And imagine if we got to $1,000, Brendan. Then we're cooking with gas. You reckon?
Yeah, well, look, it doesn't matter what you're kind of starting with. The whole purpose of investing is to build up something over time, um, and that's really the key thing. I think, especially with the share market, you want to give it time to grow, but it's so easy.
Hang on. I'm just giving $100. How long do I have to wait to get my return?
Good question.
Well, that really depends on what you invest in.
Okay.
Is the simple answer.
Well, I'm not as
I mean,
young as Kelly. I can't wait on for 50 years to get my return.
I was going to say, yeah, how long are you? So, any other tips that you, and I'll ask you another question to see, because I know some other things that you offer community members that you help, so for people, as I said, with inflation, everything, cost of living going up, but wages and salaries staying the same. So micro investing is one thing. Any other sort of tips that you would give to people in that scenario?
There is something else that I've always kind of considered, and that's peer-to-peer lending. You can
I
get
like
in
that. I like that.
quite well. Small amounts again.
Can we make them large amount, peer-to-peer, large amounts?
No, you can start with as little as $10 as well in that.
All right, Julio, can I borrow $10?
Mark,
Is that what you're talking about? Peer-to-peer? Because
yeah.
Julio's my peer. I could just grab $10 off him.
So far it's $110. Is that right, Mark?
That's right.
Yeah, so look, I like Plenty, to be honest. It used to be called something else. I've forgotten now.
Plenty.
Is this another app for peer-to-peer lending, Brendan? Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
got you.
both an app and online. You
And
can
online.
kind of see. It doesn't matter how you access it, as long as you have access to the internet. Again, it's been going on for quite some time. Plenty, of course, it had a former name. It's been going on very close to 15 years, I think, and it hasn't lost.
Well, we better let the listeners know, Brendan. I'm not fussy what platform we use. We just want to get you $100. We haven't had any commitments for $100 yet, so we might take it down to $50. What about $50? Does anyone out there want to donate $50 to the fund? We might put it in Plenty because that sounds better than the other one. Plenty sounds like a really good thing.
So you put $50 or $100 into Plenty. Is that right, Brendan? And then what's the next step from there?
You can pick three. There are three options basically that you can pick at the moment, varying on interest rate levels, and your time frame obviously is going to come into that. I think the first tier is you can access, like, it kind of rolls over every 30 days, but it's a lower interest rate. I think 3-4%, something like that at the moment. The next tier is a 12-month to 5 year. They've recently changed the structure, but basically it used to be a 5-year term that you invest this or lend this money out for, and over the 5 years you get principal and interest payments every month based on amounts and interest rates. It kind of depends what you invest in. If for some reason you need that capital back, you can actually access some of that capital back, less a small fee for obviously ending the loan early.
So would that be a good option to say if, let's say COVID happens again and we all need sudden urgent funds, for anything coming up? Is that something? So if we have something in that peer-to-peer lending and we need to withdraw cash immediately, that's been slowly growing, is that a good option?
It's probably not the best option, but it also depends on your mindset and your cycles. So what I used to do, I put aside a money every month. Okay, so it's a 12-month cycle. So if I put money in every month, then I keep doing that over time. Then every month I'll have access to that money. Like the maturity date will fall due every single month, so I can take that money out. So there's different ways, I guess, strategies, if you like, that work a lot better than others to get that higher interest rate, but also have access to your capital.
Well, it's great having Brendan here on 98.9 Northwest FM Community Heart Radio. We're talking finances and very keen about this peer lending. I've got $10 from Julio. Going to try and get $10 from Kelly. I'm up to 20, and we're actually asking our guests if they're going to put in as well. So keen to hear that. We're going to move into the top 5 financial tips from Brendan. So we're really going to nail him down to 5 tips he's got. His best ones, we don't want the second-hand ones. These are the top tips he's going to give us. 5 of the best.
And when he says top, Mark, when he says top, Brendan, Mark means he's going to be actioning them. He's going to be he's
Yeah,
action
we got
and
action
walking.
on.
One of his goals for this 2023 was going to be going for a walk.
That's right. But
Mm-hmm.
I am disappointed in my listeners that we won't be able to raise $1,000 today for our Plenty account, because the Plenty one sounded good. But obviously everyone's cashed up like Julio out there. They don't need to get from the Plenty account. And all right, Brendan. Well, look, we're going into the top 5. That's the 98.9 Northwest FM Community Heart Radio Financial top 5 tips from Brendan. What's your first one, Brendan?
The first one is always the one that I recommend everyone starts at, and that's to build a cash buffer. We need cash buffers for emergencies before we even try and build the passive or secondary income. You never know when an emergency is going to come, and you never really want to start investing and only to find 6 months later that you need that money. That's what the cash buffer is for. So I always recommend build up a cash buffer first. Some people start at a 6-month cash buffer, some 12 months. I recommend 12 months if you can. I know you've got to be extremely patient with that sometimes, but I mean, if you lose your job, then you've got 12 months worth of expenses covered straight off the bat.
Great, mate. All right, so
you're saying
you got a question?
Yeah, and we've also got a question from one of our listeners here as well. So you're saying, Brendan, for all our viewers out there, to build that up for 12 months in case they lose a job or an emergency happens, or could they whittle it down to, say, 3 months or 6 months, perhaps?
Yeah, look, in some cases, it might be more practical to do a smaller amount. What I encourage people to do is keep an eye out on any future potential redundancy packages that they might get, and kind of plan that into it as well. So if you can only save 3 months worth of expenses, great, start there. Maybe have a look at your redundancy package. You might get 2 months worth of expenses covered out of that. But obviously, the more you have in your cash buffer, the easier it's going to be should you lose your job.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's tip number 1. We might we'll deal with Eric's question because it's quite an interesting question. Do you put your treasures on earth or in heaven? Really, Kelly, maybe you just read out the question for us.
Yeah, Eric's asked, can we have the panel's thoughts on Christian relationship perspective with money? As in, I find Christians tend to download on trying to achieve financial freedom, and we should pursue spiritual treasures, not physical. How much money is enough?
Yeah, well, let's answer it whether you're a Christian or not a Christian. Obviously, not everyone is a Christian watch a show. So, I mean, it's whether you put your focus on money or maybe on relationships or on other things. Brendan, what would you say to people, that might be get a bit of, because some people can get obsessed about money or be really, some people could call them materialistic. And then there's some people that should worry about money a bit more.
Yeah. Look, it's a good question. And obviously, like for myself, I always try and put God first over money. Money is nothing more than a tool at the end of the day. We need it. It's an essential tool. The Bible talks many, many times about money, how to use it. It talks about using your time and your funds wisely. So I think some people kind of get hung up on that, all this accumulation, and it's all about money. But I think if you have a balanced, healthy consideration and keep in mind that money is just a tool that we need for our daily bread, so to speak.
Do you think Augustine's got it right, Brendan, when he says
no money, no
honey? No money, no honey.
Possibly. Who knows?
Kelly, what do you think? What do you think about Augustine's comment? Would you? Because
I'm trying to think of what I make of that, to be honest.
Now, Kelly, I want to ask you a really honest question here, and I'm sorry to do it on live radio, but when you go out with a guy, are you worried about how much money they've got? If you go out with a guy that's got not one razoo, or you got to go
honey,
like
that's
Julio's
a whole other
exploded.
conversation on a relationship episode.
No, that's right. But would you go? Which way would you lean? You reckon towards the money or the non-money?
It depends, is all I'm going to say. Interesting, interesting diplomatic answer there.
Yes, very interesting. All right, we might move on to our tip, the second tip for the night, of the top 5 financial tips. What's your second one, Brendan?
Second one is create a budget. Understand what's coming in, what's coming out. I think, allow yourself the grace to be a little flexible with it. A budget is a guide. It's having a look at your current financial position, and kind of alongside that, be honest with where you are. Have that conversation with your partner. Where are we? What's in the bank? What's coming out? What bills have we got coming into the future that we might struggle with? So yeah, definitely have a budget is tip number 2.
Okay, fantastic, mate. What about tip number 3?
Tip number 3, it's far easier and more effective to cut expenses than it is to try and save money or create more income. It's really
easier
is
to cut costs.
Yeah, much easier. It's easier to say no to a cup of coffee than it is to, go through the process of trying to save, put money aside, because that money might not be there at the end of the week to put aside. So it's easier to try and find savings than it is, cut expenses than to save.
Augustine thought that was sensible, but he's also asking about a safe way to invest during a recession.
Good question.
Well, I think, the safest way to invest during a recession is in cash-based products. Obviously, you're going to start with your bank accounts, a term deposit. You might go, like in the case of Latrobe, I think is a low to medium risk, some would say. But yeah, more of your interest-based products as opposed
Talk to us
to...
a bit about that, Brendan, when you're saying interest and...
So, bank interest, things that are almost kind of guaranteed, your government bonds, your basic ETFs that deal with maybe just interest, and to an extent, for sure, peer-to-peer lending, obviously lower amounts perhaps, depending on what your strategy, what you can afford to invest. I never like to invest what I can't afford to lose. So I'm not going to cry over $10 if I lose $10, but I might cry over 100 if I lose that. So I'm going to be more careful. But yeah, definitely your interest-based products, savings accounts, term deposits, anything interest-based.
Eric liked the dollar. Eric's got a comment here. He likes your goal number 3, which is really about $1 saved is a dollar earned. So I think that's a good comment there, Julio. Few good lessons here for you, mate.
Yeah, there is. I think
we've got another one from Eric here. Can you put that up, mate? A tip I like is that regular savings amount that comes out of your pay before you can spend it. Yeah, that's what we were talking about before, Eric. It's a good one. Kelly's got that one, and that's why she's got so much in the bank. So it's good. So it works out well. Oh, these guys are going berserk now. As Augustine's, it looks like he's got some ideas as well.
Yes.
Banks to take out our money and invest it, and then give us nothing in return. Is an anti-banker. There's a few of them around. And the old anti-banker. Well, Brendan, we're up to tip number 4. We're coming to the end of the show. It's been a great show, Brendan. We appreciate your time. What's your 4th tip?
My 4th tip, if you're going to start investing, understand exactly what you're investing in. Understand the risks. Understand the timelines for the goals. Recognize the risks and rewards. Understand the consequences. Just take an overall look at, different scenarios, I guess. If you're worried about an investment that you're not quite sure on, then ask other people, have they invested in this? Get some feedback, have a look at reviews, and don't be afraid to ask those questions and see, what other people have bought. Kind of alongside that, just educate yourself on the product that or service, whatever it is that you're investing in. The more you know, the better it's going to benefit you. So the next time an opportunity comes around, you'll know or feel more confident in what you're investing in.
Yeah, great point, buddy. And bring it home with our last tip number 5.
Tip number 5 is kind of a mixed bag. So I don't know how many of us have heard of the economic clock. There is an economic clock. If you Google economic clock, it should come up with a rough timeline of different cycles, economic cycles. So we normally start kind of 12, when things are really good, the economy's great. Then there's the slowdown period where there's rising interest rates, falling share prices. So that's kind of the slowdown phase that we're trying to initiate now. The next phase is kind of the recession stage where there's, more tighter money controls and lending, falling overseas reserves. And then after that, there's this kind of recovery period where interest rates are falling to try and boost the economy. There's more stimulus available. We kind of start heading back into that boom cycle. So, I encourage people to Google economic clock and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. But that certainly helps, I guess, give you an idea.
It's freakishly accurate as well to me.
Well,
how often does the economic clock happen, Brendan? Is this the theory every 7 years? Is that what it is? Or when was the last recession? I'm trying to think. 2008?
Yeah, look, it can vary quite a bit. And again, it comes down to looking at what's happening in the world economy, what's happening here in Australia. Obviously, at the moment, interest rates are rising, and it's kind of, I would hope, obvious by looking at the economic clock that we're in a slowdown period. When exactly that slowdown kind of transitions into a recession, I guess we'll have more job losses, things like that. I mean, businesses will be, I would imagine, struggling a lot more. And then with the recovery phase and the boom phase, we'll see transitions with the economy there. Typically you'll see interest rates fall and share prices begin to recover over that time.
Well, thanks, mate. We've run out of time. The show's coming to an end. It's been great having Brendan on 98.9 Northwest FM Community Heart Radio talking about finances. Julio's just going to quickly go through our top 5 tips for you tonight. You might want to write them down. Thanks, Julio.
Number 1, build up a 12-month buffer. First thing, remember the 12-month rule. Number 2, create a budget that comes into and is outgoing, the ingoing outgoings. Number 3, easier to cut expenditure than saving. Number 4, if you're going to go into investing, understand the risks.
And number 5 was the economic clock. Check out that clock.
Yes.
Kelly, it's great having you on tonight. Is this going to help your financials going forward?
It is, but I'm definitely going to need a guru like Brendan by my side to go, right, Cal, this is the app that you need to download. This is where to start. But definitely had some good takeaways tonight. Thank you so much, Brendan, for coming on the show tonight.
Great. And Julio, it's great to see you awake tonight, mate, even though you got scullions. How did you find things, mate? Did you learn anything?
Yes, I always learn more stuff whenever I talk finance, especially with people like Brendan that's there on the ground, seeing what's actually happening.
Well, Brendan, been fantastic having you on the show, mate. We all appreciate it. Any last comment you want to make before we head off?
Just try and be wise, I guess. Be wise and smart with your money. Don't be afraid to have conversations with other people, your partner, really be honest with your budgets and do your best to try and find savings where you can if you're struggling.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming tonight, Brendan. We'll see you all next week.
See you, everyone.
See you, Rod.
Bye.
thank you for joining us this evening. Tune in every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. or watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and follow us on LinkedIn and other social media.